Integrating renewables into your new development or existing power system has the potential to save your mine money and reduce its carbon footprint by reducing fuel use. Despite the high level of recent interest, very few renewable energy projects for mines have progressed, and most of the ones that have progressed had financial support from ARENA to be commercially viable. So why haven't we seen more mining renewables projects? In a lot of cases, the commercial reality of costs is the main issue. Many mining projects are relatively short term, so the capital cost of a renewable power station could not be amortized effectively over the project life. Also, diesel, gas, and grid power are the industry standard for power supply. Renewable energy projects introduce integration and reliability risks. So what is the secret to a low-cost, low-risk renewable project? How do we ensure system reliability and stability? Is there a way to integrate renewables safely, without blackouts or contractual conflict? The answer is yes. Appropriate planning and risk mitigation at the feasibility stage can both mitigate the technical risks and optimize the overall solution to realize a great commercial outcome. In this presentation, we will take a quick dive into the key areas that should be covered at the feasibility stage of a project and why each area is important. I'm Dave Dennis from Circular Solutions. Circular Solutions is a specialist consultant and contractor focusing on remote power projects. Our team has project delivery experience and integration experience on remote projects in Australia and in the Pacific. We also have recent experience with renewables for mining as the EPC contractor for the Nova Solar Power Station, a 6 megawatt solar farm developed by Zenith Pacific and connected to IGO's Nova Nickel mine in WA. In this presentation, I'll run through the key areas that we consider during the feasibility phase of renewable energy projects, and I'll be here through the whole presentation, so feel free to type any questions or comments in the chat box and I'll be able to chat with you live. Integrating renewable generation into new and existing mining power systems can have financial and environmental benefits with manageable risks. Return on investment will generally be the key factor in determining if a project proceeds or not. However, a disproportionate benefit is gained by paying the right amount of attention across all project areas at the planning stage. This approach will avoid unexpected costs or other roadblocks later in the delivery. The project areas that should be considered can be grouped into three main categories: commercial considerations, community, environment and approvals, and solution engineering. Safety and risk assessments must be made in all areas. Commercial considerations include through-life financial modelling, commercial and operating models, contracting strategy, and sources of funding. Building the financial model for a renewable energy project requires some serious crystal ball gazing. One of the key forecasts required is the cost of fossil fuels over the project lifetime. The cost of fuel is what we are offsetting by generating renewable power. Fuel cost forecasts change from year to year, and then a black swan event like COVID-19 comes along and causes all the forecasts to be rewritten again. Until recently, government incentives for renewable generation formed a large part of the financial model revenue. However, the value of these incentives has decreased significantly and is forecast to continue to decrease. The project team and the mining company need to take a position on the future value of these costs and revenues, as well as define the project life. Sensitivity analysis is valuable to assess the project viability in different scenarios. Commercial and operating models need to be developed. Early discussions between relevant parties and working together to structure agreements is important to ensure there are no conflicting incentives between the parties. The contracting strategy will be influenced by the project team's experience, capability, and approach to risk. Typical models are for the project team to self-deliver or to contract to a turnkey contractor under a fixed lump sum arrangement or EPC. If the project team chooses to self-deliver, it is possible to engage a consultant who has construction experience to support the internal team or to manage the project on their behalf. This contracting model is known as Managing Contractor or Engineering, Procurement and Construction Management, EPCM. If you're interested in learning more about this approach, please put a message in the comments section and I'll send you an explainer PDF on it. For funding, An assessment should be made early on in the project to determine all appropriate and available sources of funding. For community, the environment and approvals, areas to consider are engagement of the direct stakeholders, community engagement, Indigenous engagement, environmental assessment, and approvals and permits. The direct stakeholders are the people or organisations that will be directly affected by the project. In mine site renewables projects, these people are likely to include the department heads, including electrical mechanical process HSE, the emergency response team, the power generation team, or IPP if power is outsourced, the company shareholders, and the landowners and traditional owners. It's important to have a process to actively engage each of these stakeholders as part of the feasibility process. Overlooking direct stakeholders is a lost opportunity to identify project issues that they may be aware of and mitigate them early. Power projects are complex and can affect a number of different groups outside the direct stakeholders. As with direct stakeholders, early engagement of the local community can allow risk to be identified and mitigated early and gives the community a sense of involvement and empowerment. Groups to consider are mine site staff and contractors, local Indigenous community, and the local general community. Most mining companies already actively engage with the traditional owners of the land. This engagement should continue with the integration of a renewable energy project. The local Aboriginal community can provide valuable input into the selection of land for the project and help mitigate the risk of disturbing Aboriginal heritage during construction. It is also likely that the construction and maintenance of the plant will create Indigenous employment opportunities. An environmental assessment will be completed as part of the mine feasibility. The project team should check that the original assessment is current and relevant to the proposed locations for the renewable plant. Assessing the relevant permits and approvals and bringing regulators into the loop should be done as early as possible to mitigate the risk of approvals holding up the development later in the process. Category 3. Solution engineering. It may seem obvious, but clearly defining the project objective is essential to a successful outcome. Often, the project objective is framed as a solution, for example, a solar farm with a battery. However, it is more likely that the actual objective is something like a renewable generation integration with the highest net present value without a reduction in power system stability or reliability. Defining the project objective clearly helps the project team focus on the actual project requirements when developing the project scope. Once the objective is clear, the project team should consider the existing and future system loads, generation design options, system stability and reliability, constructability and operability, and capital cost. The technical solution options can be fed back into the financial model in multiple iterations. The concept design should consider the maximum load and the total energy consumed. To optimise the design for fuel savings and stability, the designer should also consider the load profile, including variations over days and seasons and large loads that may cause a system disturbance or could be used for demand-side management. An understanding of future loads is important to ensure that the system is expandable if necessary and that savings aren't affected if the system load decreases. Early feasibility will usually consider a number of generation options. Wind and solar are usually considered. Depending on the location and resources available, less obvious options might be feasible, such as waste heat from the plant, biomass, or waste to energy. An often overlooked opportunity to reduce fuel use and save costs is reducing energy demand. This can be achieved by specifying energy efficient equipment in new mines or retrofitting on existing sites. In a lot of cases, a client will be able to save more money by changing to energy efficient equipment than by installing renewable generation. The available size, location and cost of land should be identified at this stage too. This will impact the maximum size of the new plant, the cost of the access roads and the cost of connecting to the microgrid. System stability and reliability is one of the key considerations with any power project. Renewable energy projects need particular attention in this area because of intermittency in some renewable energy resources and the different characteristics of inverters compared with traditional spinning generators. Related issues can be successfully mitigated with appropriate dispatch, protection and control design. Energy storage is one popular way to mitigate some of these risks. Battery solutions are becoming more feasible with steadily reducing battery costs and the availability of high-power batteries, but are often not the most cost-effective solution. To ensure that the cost assumptions used in the financial model are valid, constructability and operability should be considered during the feasibility. The equipment and installation cost of renewable systems have been improving rapidly, making projects more feasible. However, the capital cost assessment for a mine site renewable project must consider the high costs of delivery in a remote environment, including mobilisation costs, logistics, and the availability of local services and resources. We recommend using a risk assessment to appropriately assign contingency to the capital cost estimate and ensure all costs are captured. Thanks for your time today. In this presentation, I've spoken a lot about risks, but with appropriate attention to the feasibility phase, the risks can be successfully mitigated and the commercial and environmental benefits can be optimised. Because Circular Solutions is a consultant and a contractor, we are ideally placed to help you at the feasibility phase and through to completion. If you would like support with your project, we would love to have a conversation with you about your project goals. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.